Hope Carolina and all along those lines. So definitely a lot of things are going on in the sense of the way the weather is treating us and all along those ways. So definitely it's been unseasonably warm, but then we've also had some rain earlier today and everything like that. So it's definitely been some unusual weather. And of course, people are following what's going on in the NFL with the playoffs. And we're down to the final 8 teams. And I'll see if any of my guests have any dog in the fight. I know that the team that I root for didn't make the playoffs, that being the Minnesota Vikings, even though they were in the hunt there for a while and everything along those lines, but it didn't make it as far as they were concerned. And we'll see what they do next year. But I do know that the Carolina Panthers made it and got eliminated in the wild card round, even though they definitely showed some grit and made it a very close game and lost toward the end of that particular game and all along those lines. So definitely now people are getting ready for the Saturday, Sunday games and seeing who makes it into the conference championships, and then from there into the Super Bowl and all along that kind of way. So we've been from 8, we'll go from 8 to 4, and then we'll go to 4 to the final 2, and all in that kind of way. So it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out as we are now in that season. And I know that on Monday is the national championship, since there's a college tournament for football that's been going on for a 2 or 3 years now, and this year it'll be Indiana against Miami. So I know one of the founders of the network is very glad about that, as he is a University of Miami graduate, that being Nick Palfeda. And I don't think that Kim Calhoun has any dog in the fight either. And I know I don't, even I do have some friends from Indiana, just like I know some people from Miami as well. But we'll see how that goes. And of course, people are talking about the political landscape and what's going on in that way. And as you know, I'm oftentimes on this show talking about entrepreneurship as well as creativity. And I've got 2 amazing guests. There may be another one joining me as well, but I'm going to bring them in very shortly and see what they've got going on in their world and what they've got going on in their lives. So I'll start off with Sean Bowl and see what he's got going on in his world. And I'll also bring in very shortly Cantana Peterson, who I've known for a long time, and she's a long time entrepreneur here in the Durham area. So Sean, I met you through definitely that whole notion of Matchmaker FM, which is a podcast guesting service, and all along those lines. And I've also got Coach Daniels that'll be joining us as well, and everything like that. So we got an amazing show that we'll be talking to you folks and seeing what y'all are all involved in. And like I said, one is a friend, and I've known her for a while, and the rest of you two are new individuals. So share a little bit about what you got going on, Sean, and then in a little bit I'll bring in Cantana, and I'll also bring in Coach Daniels as well. But just share a little bit about what you got going on in your world. And is it cold where you are? Because we actually, the temperatures dropped a little bit here in Durham, North Carolina, even though it's now probably maybe close to the 50s and everything like that. But we had some rain earlier today, and it got a little bit on the chilly side. But how are you doing, and where are you located at? And share a little bit about your journey and what you've got going on.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. Yeah, no, it's pretty cold where I'm at. We're in Philly. Eagles weren't able to, move on, which it is what it is. But no, man, I run a marketing company here in the city. We pretty much, do a lot of small business, medium-sized marketing, SEO, ads, a lot of stuff with AI, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But yeah, no, thanks for the introduction. I appreciate it.
No doubt about it. So the company is called Momentum 360, and that's a great name for a company and all along those lines and all in that space. And like you said, we'll probably get into AI and some of the business conversation as well. I also want to bring in a longtime friend of mine, Cantana Peterson, who has had a bartending company. I don't know how long. She's had it probably for a number of years, and all along those lines, I lost track how long she's had this company and everything like that, because it's been a while. She's done some events at the Hayti Heritage Center, the cultural arts center that I work at. As a matter of fact, a week from today, which is probably why we won't have an online dinner party next week, we'll start our season for the 2026 season, and the first act will be Brandy Younger, who is a harpist out of New York City. So she'll be coming as part of our season. Includes Branford Marsalis, Tayoshi Coates, who's the author, as well as Yazara and a number of other folks. But share, folks, this is a global network and everything along those lines, even though I have a lot of listeners here in Durham and the Triangle, but I do have folks around the world. So just share a little bit about Bartenders Unlimited and some of the other things that you've been doing. Because like I said, I know that company has been around for a while, and you've definitely done a lot of events, probably more events than you care to remember and everything like that. So just share a little bit about your background and what made you decide to start this bartending company.
Bartending Unlimited is actually 21 years old. We turned 21 in August of 2025, so we're extremely excited. We're legal now. Ha ha ha. um, but Bartending Unlimited was started because my late husband was a bartender and he wanted to find a different way to be able to engage with people without being in a club environment. So we did the research and figured out the best ways to make that happen. So that's how Bartending Unlimited started. However, we've also ventured out into travel and we did gourmet popcorn. So we've been serial entrepreneurs for a while now. Um, it's been a great journey. There's always a learning curve whenever you start something new. However, the takeaways are so vast and they lend themselves to additional entrepreneurship ventures as you continue to grow.
Yeah, no doubt about it. You mentioned being a serial entrepreneur, and I've got other friends that are serial entrepreneurs as well. And this is for both you and Sean. But what advice would you give for folks that are thinking about leaping into the entrepreneurship field? Like you said, part of the reason that y'all got into it is because your husband wanted to be involved in that kind of atmosphere, but didn't necessarily want to be there in some of the other traditional ways and everything like that. So, what advice would you give to folks that are thinking that they want to go into entrepreneurship?
One of the largest things I would say is mindset. You have to change your mindset from being an employee to being an entrepreneur because that particular shift can be very difficult because as an entrepreneur, you don't expect to have a paycheck every time you get money into the company because wisdom will tell you to reinvest what you're earning back into the company to continue to have it to grow and to be successful. So as the owner of a business, you don't get a paycheck all the time. So you have to set that mind to how do I invest this? How do I reinvest this? How do I put this money in a position that's going to strategically build more interest, more wealth, more equipment, whether it's teaching, training, whatever it may be, you have to change the mindset. That's the biggest thing for me, and the biggest shift that I see where people moving from employee status to a business owner status where they falter because they're expecting that check every week or every 2 weeks. And it's not coming, sweetheart. You have to have made some financial decisions that put you in a structural position to be able to move whether that money is coming in or not.
No, no doubt about that. And I know the other thing, and I definitely want to hear from Sean his thoughts around entrepreneurship and what advice he gives to entrepreneurs as well. But just really quickly, how do you deal with that work-life balance as well? Because, like you said, a lot of times people are expecting that check, and if you're going into the corporate America or even nonprofits, those checks are coming regularly, whether it's on a monthly basis, as in the case with state jobs, or whether it's in a biweekly basis or even a weekly basis, and all along those lines. But as we know, that isn't always the case with entrepreneurs, and I know you have kids, Cantana, and everything like that, and folks may be expecting those new shoes or that hip new telephone and everything like that, and sometimes you're still waiting for the check to come in, so you got to sometimes put the kids on hold and everything like that while you're waiting for the checks to come in. So how did you deal both when your late husband was living, and also now with that work-life balance?
For us to be able to handle that, what we did was we set an expectation. We were very upfront and very honest with our son. And there was a level of expectancy that we had to modify. And when you get to that place that you realize, okay, well, we can do this because what we do is cyclical. And most businesses are depending upon where they are and what they're doing. But for us, we know our up season and our low season, our high season and our low season. So we would adjust accordingly. And we would just say, okay, hey, listen, you're going to have to wait on that particular item until this time, because then we know at that point in time we'll be more flush financially. And you do little things in between, but those larger things, you just kind of go ahead and be like, sweetheart, you got to wait on that. And it's just really setting that honest expectation with your partner as well as with the children, because they get a different level of peer pressure than business owners do because they're children. However, I'm so grateful that our son is very grown and mature, and he understood quite a bit because we're from a long line of entrepreneurs. So that way of life was rather normal for us.
Yeah, that makes sense. What's your take on that, Sean? What advice do you give to entrepreneurs? I'm also going to bring in Coach Daniels as well, who comes from a different perspective in terms of entrepreneurship, because she's also involved in the world of mysticism and things along those lines. But definitely wanted to bring her in also. But definitely, what is your take on entrepreneurship, Sean, and what advice do you give to folks?
Yeah, I mean, I second everything that was just said. I think the thing that comes to mind is accountability at the end of the day. I mean, I'm 28 years old. I'm very young in the average entrepreneur scene, but I think people go on social media. They have this false narrative and expectation of the Lambos and the big house and the beautiful wife and whatnot, right? And all those things are attainable, but you don't see where, to your point previously, you're not paying yourself. You have to keep the roof over the head. You have to keep the lights on. You have to do all of these things. And I think people just mentally, they are still in that employee mindset. It was so well said. They're not ready to quite literally fight and battle tooth and nail to keep this business alive, right? When you're first starting it up, that's what you need to do. Now, as time goes on, it's a little bit more established. You have a little bit more leeway, but to continue to grow, you have to have that same mindset. And I think, people nowadays, they're seeing that it takes so much more. I mean, we have a lot of great opportunity with AI and technology, but at the end of the day, it's the human who's still driving and the mindset that is, cultivating all these different things. So if the mindset isn't there and someone still has that employee mentality, it's not going to work out. It's going to be very hard to sustain that business, for sure. We're all aware. Yeah.
No, that makes sense and everything. Just really quickly, Quintana, he's mentioned a couple of times AI, and I know that a number of people in the restaurant business are concerned about the impact of AI. Some people are afraid because I know that even I recently went to, I think it was Checkers and everything along those lines. Me and a friend went and got an order, and the drive-through window was covered by an AI robot. It wasn't an actual person that was taking my order. There wasn't an actual person that was actually giving me my order. But I know that a lot of people are concerned about AI and its impact on the restaurant business. And I'm wondering if that's something that you're even concerned about in the bartending business, because we know bartending is a very personal business, and I don't know that AI is actually going to be able to do all the things that actual personal bartenders do and everything like that. So I just wanted your take and whether you've heard concern in the bartending industry about a fear of AI.
I have heard some concerns. There are some new machines out that are personalized cocktail machines for at home. I've seen a few of those in the industry, in the marketplace. However, I don't really think that AI is going to be able to give that interpersonal connection the same way that a real bartender does. There's a personal aspect to bartending, kind of like with the cosmetologist. You go to them and you kind of open up and you give your barber, you give them all your information because you're just kind of venting. And it's a little difficult to do that with a machine. And I'm sure that the younger generation may think, well, no, we can replace the bartenders. You won't get the same effect, and you won't be able to have the level of creativity that an actual person will bring to the table. Even though I own a bartending company for 21 years, I don't drink. So a lot of my clients want me to engage. Yeah, I know, right? A lot of my clients want me to consume. So I realized shortly into the venture, I needed to create something that I could consume that would look like a cocktail. So my bartenders, when I say, hey, make me my drink, they know to make me, cranberry, orange juice, ginger ale, they'll garnish it, it'll look great. So you'll think I'm having a cocktail with you. However, with a machine, you can't necessarily do that and be able to get the same level of creativity, because you may have someone that wants to add a twist to a drink, and the machine may not necessarily understand or be intuitive enough to make that adjustment the same way that a human would. So I'm slightly concerned, but not overly concerned, because there's no way to really replace that interpersonal connection at a bar.
No, that makes sense. I did not know that you were a teetotaler and everything like that with a bartending company. A lot of people would be surprised by that. So definitely, when people find that out, what is people's reactions and everything like that? Because they're probably, like you said, thinking that you're going to indulge in whatever the current craft beer, the craft wine is. Because like you, I know a few of these craft companies, whether it's Southern Wicked or whether it's Shoot Crazy, or a number of others that exist here in our area, meaning the Triangle, North Carolina. But there's some others, because I think Shoot Crazy is actually based in Richmond, Virginia. But there's even Hillside Bourbon that is one of our local companies and everything like that. But I'm just wondering your thoughts around, are people surprised when they find out that you are a non-drinker, even though you're working in the drinking business? That would be like a non-cigarette smoker working or being an executive at RJ Reynolds and everything like that. What people's reactions are when they find out that you don't drink yourself.
Most of the time, people are clutching their pearls like, oh my God, how can you be in a bartending business and not drink? And I go with the old adage, you don't get high on your own supply. Um, so for me, a lot of people wonder, well, how can you know how to mix this and put this with that and how the taste profiles work? And I tell them all the time, hey, I don't drink, but I have to sample. So when we go out and do different things, I will do what I call the straw test. I'll order the new cocktail or whatever it is, and I'll straw test it, sip it, take my notes, make sure I've got all the information I need to see what I can pair with that, what's going to meld nicely with that flavor, all the things. And then whoever's at the table gets the drink. So my team and people like to go out with me to dinner because they know I'm going to order the cocktail and then pass it off. But now with your bourbons and your things like that, I do have to take a shot. So like, I'm not a regular consumer. However, I do all of my background, my work, my homework, and I do have to taste these things. And because there's no way that I can just say, we're going to mix this with that and not knowing the profile, not knowing what the palate's going to do with it, not knowing how the flavors are going to meld together. So that's how I handle that. But yes, I do have to sip, and I don't drink.
Don't drink, but you get that stuff and everything like that. Hey, Sean, before I get to Kucha and everything, and definitely want to hear more about her company as well and everything like that. But are people surprised, because you mentioned being a youngster, not even hit the 30s yet, that you are an entrepreneur, or maybe you're like Kantana and you already had a entrepreneurial background, and maybe a number of people in your family, they were entrepreneurs. And I can relate to that because my grandmother actually started the library in Raleigh as a very young age back in the 1940s. That library just recently celebrated its anniversary, and all along those lines, I can't remember if it might have been even its 60th anniversary, but I know she started it back in the 40s, the first Black library in Raleigh, North Carolina. And then my parents had a radio station in the mid 70s that stayed on the air for about 10 or 12 years, and all along those lines. And I've had other entrepreneurs. Even I would say my grandfather on mom's side was an entrepreneur because he was a farmer and definitely was involved in that area and was considered a community leader, even though it was a small rural town. So maybe you grew up around entrepreneurs, or maybe it's something that you just decided to do when you went off to high school or college. So was entrepreneurship always in your life, Sean?
Oh man, it was out of necessity, and I salute Quintana. I actually don't drink either, so salute to you on that, which is crazy because I'm in Philly, Center City, whatever. It's thrown around left and right, but no, I mean, to tell a story, I mean, my dad, he was in prison when I was in high school. So he, if you guys have seen the movie Wolf of Wall Street, Jordan Belfort, exact same story, right? Convicted from stock fraud, whatever. And I needed to work. I needed to make money out of necessity. I had my own show, my own podcast, was making a little bit of money, but I really wanted to fulfill, for my opinion, the backbone of America is small businesses, right? A lot of what we're all doing here. And I think at the end of the day, it needs to be supported too. It doesn't matter who is the president, all on both sides. I think at the end of the day, we need to support small businesses. And really for me, I figured marketing was the best kind of way to do that. So back in the day when my old man was in prison, I started off just doing people's Google profiles and websites. And then I actually merged with my now business partner, Mac, who we're like brothers at this point. We've been, in business together for almost a decade. And it's because of him and honestly, all the things that kind of accumulated, we've been able to really make a big impact on these businesses. But, it's crazy. I have people all the time like, oh my gosh, like your, old man was in prison. That's crazy. It's terrible. Yeah, that is the case. But in my opinion, I look at it almost as a blessing because without that struggle, I wouldn't have been able to, be where I am now. So yeah, definitely wasn't in our family kind of repertoire, so to speak, but I'm glad it is now, and it will be for the future. So
yeah, that makes sense. Coach, I think I'm pronouncing the name right and all along those lines. Share a little bit about your business. I know it's in the mystic space, and I definitely want to hear something more about that as well. Like I said, the online dinner party, I just invite various guests, and we learn from each other and even have dialogue among each other as well. So share a little bit about what you've got going on in your world and about your company as well.
Okay, well, the first thing I want to say was my first kiss was in North Carolina. So I love North Carolina, and I'm so glad to be here with you all. And Quintana, even though you're in a totally different kind of business, or, you're working out in the world serving people, I'm serving people too, but on a different level. But we have so many parallels. Every time you were talking about serving alcohol and, relating to people, I was going, oh my gosh, same thing that happens when I'm working with tarot cards. Because what I do, well, mostly lately I've been like glued to my computer because I'm an author, and I connected with Mark by putting out a little promo on my book called Stars, Cards, and Stones. So that was something that I recently, in the last year, came out. And at the same time that later in the year, this project came out, which is called the Zodiac Light Oracle. So not only have I spent my life, because I started when I was 22 years old, doing street artist readings in front of Ghirardelli Square in front of San Francisco. And then I went through all kind of educational and career pursuits related to psychology, working in halfway houses and mental institutes. And I mean, I really tried to do conservative things, but I kept loving and falling into doing tarot card readings and making more money with trying to work on a mystical level than trying to be like a professional therapist or consultant, counselor. So I just kept having doors open to allow me to move more into the world of mysticism. I worked 25 years at the Renaissance Fair in California. They were doing 3 different fairs in different parts of California, and I was like in all of them. So I had a year-round job almost as a tarot card reader for 25 years. And then I started doing more and more events, working in a lot of tech companies. I've done all the major tech companies. I've worked in, well, you name it, and I've been there doing readings for people in their offices and in the admin offices, the board rooms. So I've kind of gone from being like a street artist to like, oh my gosh, I've gotten so many doors that have opened just for me. The 49ers, I mean, I could I've done a lot of star celebrity readings for people. I mean, so I've just really been blessed with doors opening. And my sense is the universe kept pushing me into this business. It was something that I love to do, but then when the doors open, you're more motivated to like, oh, let me see what happens. And when it's successful and people are giving you a lot of positive feedback, you want to keep doing it more and more. So all of a sudden here I am at the other end of my life, because I'm sure not in my 20s anymore. And I'm still doing what I love, and people are still calling me to do it. So that door continues to be open, like connecting with you, Mark, and being here and meeting your wonderful guests. And so my story is just that I love the word mindset, because that's so important. You have to have a positive mindset to be able to walk into any door, if it's closed or open. You have to push it open. You have to have the mindset, I'm going to do this. And if it opens for you, you have to have the mindset that I'm going to be able to do something of value. Mm-hmm. Therefore, I want to walk into this environment that's totally foreign to me and try to make a difference or try to do something of value. So mindset is key. Confidence is key. Helping people resolve issues that they're having difficulty with is in bartending. I know that's like super important because bartenders are known for being therapists and a really good, ability to help people who are crying over their beer or whatever. So, it's kind of the same thing, but it's like with oracle cards or tarot cards. And here it is. There's my deck again. I got to do a little promo on it, but I feel just very blessed because I've had people go, well, how much did you pay to have your deck done? I go, no, I was lucky enough to have a publisher publish it for me. So they're actually paying me instead of me paying to do it. So I don't know if it's karma or I have angels or my ancestors on the other side are like really strongly pushing me along on a path that helps me. But the mystical path is filled with unknowns. Mystical because it represents something unknown or foreign. And I don't know, but have you had a tarot reading, Mark? Have you ever done that?
No, I've not had a tarot reading. I was actually going to teach you about something, and I think Kantana can relate to what I'm going to say and everything like that. I am oftentimes fascinated. I do sometimes follow astrology, even though some of those are general traits, and I'm definitely a Cancer and a typical Cancer in the sense of being somewhat of a homebody. And even though we're also supposed to be great cooks, and I don't claim to be a great cook at all. My brother is a better cook in the family, and I definitely have other members of the family that are great cooks. as well. But I do remember, and this is what I was going to tease you. Sometimes people, when they see people that are in that tarot space or in any of those mystical spaces, they're going like, well, if they are so good at predicting, why can't they predict their own? Because here in North Carolina, if you go down between Durham and Chapel Hill, there was a company and they did a lot of tarot readings and things along those lines. And then they went bankrupt. Well, I can't say they went bankrupt, but their building, I think, was sold. And then some of my friends would be like, wait a minute, well, if they could read the future, why couldn't they read that they were going to not be in that building anymore?
Right.
Along those lines. So that's what sometimes people will tease folks around in the mystical space. They'll be like thinking that you are like, even with Kantana and then non-drinking, they're thinking that all people that are in that space should automatically know their own future and everything like that. So I just wanted your answer to folks like that, because I just remember that place being there. And like I said, it was a one, I think they did companies between, I know they did tarot readings. I think they did other fortune readings as well, but it was between Durham and Chapel Hill. And then all of a sudden you saw that the building wasn't there anymore because they had sold that particular location and everything like that. And then people were like, well, how come they didn't know that was going to happen? Or maybe they did know that was going to happen and they just moved to another location. So I just wanted your take on that, because I do hear sometimes people that will say, well, they should have known that.
Mm-hmm.
We're all vulnerable to the unknown. And a lot of times, just like if you're a dentist, you have to go to another dentist. If you're a doctor, you need to be examined by another doctor. It's not always that we always know what's coming. And I think the tarot cards work as a really good friend that you can communicate with, and they can offer insight, they can offer guidance, but they don't always tell you what's going to happen. And just like if I came to you because you're the high priest in this communication circle right now, it's kind of like, it's like you're the wise man, the high priest, the sage, and you're kind of guiding us all. But if I asked you the deepest question to like, well, what's the message of your soul in this moment? It's going to be totally in the moment. You're not going to have the idea of like, well, I'm connected to the universe. I'm a cosmic being. I mean, I don't know what you would say, but I'm going to just turn this back on you, because I see you as the high priest right now, which is high priest is a person of wisdom. And there's a tarot card. It's the 5th major arcana card, and it's the high priest. And people come for insight. So, I mean, my sense is I would just throw it back on you. You were there driving past that building. Did you feel good energy from it? Did you ever go in and get a reading?
Yeah, never got any readings. Like I said, a lot of times I get around by mass transit, so I was not in the position to just like speed off and drive in, because I'm dependent on other cars and everything. But the notion of the high priest is interesting that you say that and everything along those lines, because I know that even on this show and on this network, one of the things that I do at the end of the show is I usually ask people to give their message of positivity. So in that sense, I do feel that I don't consider myself a minister, but I do consider it part of my calling to have this way of giving people to give positive insight into their life. And I've done this show now for almost 4 or 5 years, and I've definitely had mostly people that have given some very positive, enlightening messages, because with all the negativity around the world, it's always good. Whatever small part we can do to bring positive energy, I feel is a good thing. So that's something that I do at the end of every show, is get people to give a positive message. And speaking of positive message, I did have a question for Kantana, but you can jump in as well. And hopefully Sean will jump back in eventually as well. But I know he was having some issues with his computer earlier and everything along those lines. But Kantana, one of the founders of the network, is very much involved in the founding of this, that being Kim Calhoun. But she recently lost, I think it was about a year or 2 years ago, her husband. That was her lifelong partner. I think they were like high school sweethearts and everything along those lines. And I was just wondering, as one that has gone through something similar, because you were with your husband for a number of years and everything like that, what advice would you give to somebody that is going through that? I know that I think she's back in the dating lane and doing some other things, even though that took her a while to get back into that space and all along those lines. But even now, she tells anybody that's involved with her that her husband is her first and main love, and all along those lines. And I think that that's a fair statement to make for Kim, because I've heard her say that before and everything like that. And she considers him to be like an angel on her shoulders, even though he's now been gone, I think about 2 years, if I'm remembering my timeline correctly. But I know it was definitely during the pandemic. But it's one who also was with your husband for a number of years. I mean, the company's 21 years or 25 years old, I think you said, and everything along those lines. And I know he was involved with it for a number of those years, and y'all knew each other for a long time. Because I think when I first met y'all didn't even have the bartending company yet.
Right.
Ray is a good friend of mine and a good friend of yours, and we still get together and hang out and all along those lines. But I just wanted, what advice would you give to folks that have found their life love and are now still trying to go on with the rest of their life?
A very good question. And love Ray Pascal. Yes, definitely love Ray Pascal. Number two, Darius and I were best friends for 24 years.
Mhm.
We were monogamous for 22, and we were married for 18.
Wow.
So there's a very long history there. With Kim, I do understand. Darius is definitely an angel. He's definitely around. He's on my shoulder. He nudges me every now and then, which is great. I'm tell you a quick story. Darius had this thing with woodpeckers. On the corner of our house, there would be a woodpecker that would peck, and Darius would wake up and he would bang on the wall. Well, the woodpecker, of course, would respond by pecking back on the wall. So Darius would run downstairs, go outside to try to deter the woodpecker. So now, whenever I hear the woodpecker on the house, I know that that's Darius. And some people will go, well, that doesn't make any sense. It does, because I know the mating season of the woodpeckers, and they don't come during their mating season anymore. It's very sporadic. So whenever I hear that, I know that that's Darius trying to get my attention.
Mm-hmm.
With Kim, what I would tell any person who has lost a loved one, who's transitioned, you have to give yourself grace.
Mm-hmm.
You have to give yourself time to heal, time to process, time to really mourn whatever in that situation was there, whether it was good, whether it was bad, whether it was great, whether it was so. You have to allow yourself to sit through the process of healing. You can't just jump back out. Well, you can. I don't highly recommend that you jump back out and immerse yourself with someone else quickly. So her taking 2 years is great. Through the time that Darius has been gone as of November, he left November 13th of 2020.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been 5 years, I'm moving into 6. And through this process, I've had several gentlemen that have attempted to spend time with me. Through that process, each of those people taught me something different.
Mm-hmm.
But I had to set a boundary. I had to set a precedent. I had to ensure that I was ready to move forward. So her taking her time, I think is great. Her making her statement about her husband, her late husband, being there for her, being there with her, that's fine if that's how she needs to process through it and to acknowledge that he's there. Also letting the people that she's attempting to spend time with be aware of that, because some men may want to deal with that and some men may not.
Mm-hmm.
They may feel as though I can't compete with her late husband. The one thing that I did take away, a very dear friend told me probably a month after Darius' transition, was do not compare the person or persons coming into your life to your late spouse.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people will go, well, you can't help but do that. Yes, you can. It takes time, energy, and effort. If I compare every man that I deal with to my late husband, first of all, that's not fair to that new man that's trying to gain my attention.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's a very high bar. I can set the boundaries. I can set the precedent based on my late husband. However, I don't compare them to him. I don't know if that translates well, but you take the experiences that you lived with that late spouse and you put them into a structure for yourself that I won't accept anything less than this. I won't allow this to take place. However, you don't say, well, you're not doing this like Darius did it, or I prefer that you do it this way. That's going to deter a lot of people, and you're not allowing yourself to get past that healing phase that you need to get past. It does take time. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, no,
No.
I just want to say that everything that you're saying, even if it's not like someone who's passed to the other side, but when people break up after like a 14-year relationship everything you're saying is exactly, it fits for just letting go of the past relationship and not trying to relive it, even if that person's still alive and you're trying to start new relationships or friendships, that you're carrying all of these messages and feelings from the past, and then you're projecting them and putting them on the new person, and it really messes with the relationship. So it's very similar.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I've explained to several people that I know who have divorced or have long-term relationships. And people don't recognize when you divorce, you also need to grieve, because that's the death of a relationship. Right. And people will carry all of those negative things from that divorce into that new relationship that they haven't healed. And a big part of the healing process for a lot of people, which mine was a little different, I had a sense or urgency about 6 to 8 weeks before Darius physically transitioned, that I needed to get all of our passwords together so that if something happened to me, my boys, my husband and my son would be able to carry on the business, because it was in my head. It wasn't on paper, all the passwords and things. However, I'm thinking I'm going to transition. I'm thinking that I'm going to pass away. And then it turned around that it was my late husband. So during that time frame, we actually sat down and we revisited. It was time to update the wills anyway, but we revisited the wills. We revisited our desires when we transitioned. Because my question was, if I transition, would you be okay? Would I be okay with you remarrying somebody else? And I had to really think about that, because it's selfish to say no, but at the same time, I'm going, I want to be selfish. I don't want anybody else to be with you. Right. But I was blessed that we had that conversation probably about 4 weeks before he passed away. So when he transitioned, I was in a space of complete surrender. I was in a space of acceptance, because we had those conversations and we told each other every day that we loved each other. So it was very different for me. I didn't have regrets, because we said everything we needed to say while he was here. Many people have regrets because they don't have that open line of communication, and they don't properly share all the things that they need to share before that person gets ill while they're still in their right minds and then pass away. So with the loss of a spouse, whether it's through death, whether it's through divorce, whether it's through being a caregiver, because you lose a part of that person when you become a caregiver, that's a whole different story. You do have to take that time to properly allow yourself to grieve and heal through that process.
Yeah, because you probably went through some caregiving as well, because I think that he had suffered, was it through cancer or something like that? But I think that you had to be that role of a caregiver, knowing that it was a terminal illness. And I can relate to that, because I've had a aunt that had MS, and even my own brother is dealing with MS. He's had it now for a couple of years and all along those lines, but he's got a very positive outlook. As a matter of fact, if you look at Facebook, he talks about how he had to come to terms with what he was going through and all along those lines. But he had a very poignant Facebook post that he had out there that I've shared on this show and other shows as well. But definitely he was created that positive outlook. And I think that that's something people don't realize, is how much positivity can help you get through some situations and all along those lines. I'm not saying it's going to be a miracle drug, even though it definitely can help in the healing process and all along those lines. But I even know a young lady that I'm sure you probably know, Quintana, as well, that was facing cancer. It was the lady that founded Seesaw and all along those lines, when she had a early diagnosis of a cancer diagnosis, I think it was, and she knew she only had a certain amount of time to live. But even during that short period, she always had a positive attitude, even though she has since passed and everything like that. But I think that whether you know it's going to be terminal or not terminal, that attitude is an important aspect of living. So I just wanted both of your thoughts around that, because I think sometimes people think of that as like woo-woo medicine and all in that space. But I think that positivity is a real reality that we need to think about. I mean, you have to be realistic about what you're facing, but I think positive attitude is an important part of the healing process, even if it's a terminal diagnosis.
I think positivity can turn around a terminal diagnosis. And I also think Kantana could be an incredible grief counselor or an intuitive tarot reader with her other enterprise, of course. But you give such good advice. You could really be a healer, and your positivity, Mark, is like, that's the key to just, getting one step in front of the next step in front of the next step. And I have another question for Kantana that goes with your positivity, which is, Kantana, you said the first thing you said about when you're going through letting go or the process of grieving, that you have to give yourself grace. And I'm wondering what you mean by that.
Excuse me. What I mean by that is a lot of times people will assume that they did something wrong, that they didn't do all that they could, that they didn't provide as much love, comfort, care, time. They feel guilty about so many different things that happened or didn't happen during the time that person was here. And
that's what mother.
And that's a big deal. We have to, in my humble opinion, it's so important to recognize that you have to forgive yourself. You have to give yourself grace, because we are our worst critics. We are our absolute worst critics, and we will beat up on ourselves to an extent that we will either make ourselves become depressed, we will put ourselves in a catatonic state, we will completely separate or isolate from our friends and family, because we're literally beating up on ourselves. And that's not going to move you forward. That's going to cause a regression. That's going to cause you to become deeper and deeper and darker space.
It's interesting you say that, Kantana, because as you were saying that, one of the things that I've talked about on this show quite often is this whole notion, and it also comes to a business sense as well, of the whole notion of the self-fulfilling prophecy, but also the imposter syndrome. Because I've oftentimes talked about that on this show and other shows, whether it's with entrepreneurs, whether it's with creators and everything like that. Because I know that even in my own life, there have been and for the Cultural Center for a number of years, jobs that have come up that I've had that whole inner dialogue with myself and gave every reason that I shouldn't go for the job and everything along those lines. And even in my own life, and I'm in my early 60s, 64 as of July, or when July comes around, I'll be 64 and everything like that. But I know that even in my relationship standpoint, and I've been a lifelong bachelor in terms of the single space, never having been married. I have had girlfriends and relationships, including some long-time relationships. But I know that when I have thought about courting young ladies, I have had that whole dialogue of talking to myself out of it. And by the time I got to talking myself into it, they had moved on to another relationship and everything like that. Yeah. So I just wanted your thoughts on that, because I have definitely self-defeated myself and everything like that. So I just wanted y'all's take on that, because even in jobs and relationships, I have had that whole little dialogue where I've given every reason not to approach them. And by the time I approach them, they're like, well, I'm already dating him. or I've already dealing with whatever the job is and everything like that. So it's in both the job and the personal space.
Mark, I had no idea.
Yeah. Well,
as a reader, I would step in if I was giving you a reading and say, okay, Mark, we've got to reframe this. You've got to look at what you're looking, how your attitude and your approach, and we need to, take it up a notch or two so that you're being more accepting of your humanness, and that things can change, and that you're evolving, and it's time for you to say yes to love. And the more that you can be optimistic that you can, that you're ready, because you have to be ready. But if you're truly like, I can into a deeper relationship or a more long-term relationship.
Yeah, I think she's breaking up a little bit over there in California and everything like that. But Kantana?
Computer. My computer, I think it's the wind. We're having like major weather around California. But if you can believe that, it's possible, and that, you're going to make it happen, you have everything going for you. You're charming, you're good looking, you look very huggable. Cancers are very nurturing as one of their characteristics. They're nurturing, protective, very loving and cuttable, deeply emotional. So you have everything going for you. You have to believe that, okay, I can make this happen. So when in the morning, when you're waking up going, I'm going to make love happen, I'm going to do this. And then just don't think about it the rest of the day, but like to really believe that you can do it. And, you're going to see more depth in your relationships.
I hope that's the
It
case.
goes back to mindset, Mark.
Uh-huh.
Mindset.
It goes
I love
back
that word.
to mindset, babe.
Yeah.
It's mindset. Example, last night I was helping my sister. She's got 3 children at home and she's in Poughkeepsie. She travels for work. And
Did she just disappear on me?
I'm glad it's not just me, because I know like the weather can mess around with our internet, like trying to hold on. I love your friend. She's so like on it, on just, she's very there.
I don't know what happened.
So that happens sometimes. Mindset, yeah, sometimes computers have a mind of their own and everything like that.
Because it was just like, wow, where did they go?
Yeah, but you were talking about mindset, Katana, so definitely
Mindset. And my example of this is last night, my niece and I were going to pick up a couple of items, and I said, I do not want to go to Walmart. I do not want to go to Walmart. And we had to go to Walmart. Had a horrible experience. Horrible experience. Left, and when I left, the gentleman didn't give me all of my items, so I had to go back to Walmart. And when I left the second time, I brought that on myself, because my mindset was I don't want to go.
Right.
And because I didn't want to go, I put out that energy. And when I put that energy out, it changed my experience. Had I said, okay, I'm going to go to Walmart and take care of what I need to take care of, my experience wouldn't have been the same. But it was my mindset. But in that moment, I didn't think about it that way. But I realized when I left the second time, it was definitely my mindset. So I guess that example was specifically for you, Mark, because it happened to me just last night. Mindset makes a difference. It really does. But that's also a part of you recognizing who you are and what you're willing to accept.
Right.
What you really, really want, and not pushing against yourself. Like I said, we were our own worst enemies. So the erroneous thinking that we have will cause us to literally put out energy that we don't even realize we're putting out, and it'll completely change the experience that you could have had you had a different mindset.
Well, speaking of mindset, the other interesting thing, and I'd love to hear your thoughts about this as an entrepreneur, but also coaches at mindset and thoughts around this as well, is that sometimes the other thing that we can do that is dangerous, and I know that Ray, our mutual friend, talks about this, is the brain drain, where you let people get your knowledge without necessarily getting compensation and everything like that. But the flip side of that, which I think happens way too often, is this notion of letting other people's dreams dictate yours. Because I know that we both have mutual friends and some people that we know that will try to get you to live their dream, not necessarily live your own dream and everything like that. So I just wondered, what advice would you give to people that are having friends that aren't just draining them of knowledge, but are also trying to get them to switch their destination? Because we all have a destination in our life. I mean, a lot of this stuff is preordained, I think, in my mind, and that's my own spiritual beliefs and everything like that. But I was just wondering, sometimes we can have our dreams, for lack of a better term, hijacked, because people will try to get you to live their dreams. And so you can have matching dreams, like you can be an entrepreneur and support a friend that's a fellow entrepreneur, but you don't necessarily want them to take their entrepreneurship and force your entrepreneurship away from its destiny and everything like that. So I just wanted your thoughts around that, Katana, because I'm sure there have been people, even your 21 years of bartending, that have wanted you to go into other fields or to put your skill set into their fields. And sometimes you might have had to put the brakes on them and be like, I can't do that right now. And it's not even, maybe it's going to be in the cards at all and everything like that. So I just wondered your thoughts around this notion of hijacked dreams.
My thoughts around hijacked dreams are these. One, those persons are really not your friends.
Exactly.
Okay, let's be clear.
Uh-huh.
Two, if they're trying to push their desires off on you, what are you supposed to do with that? That's not what you want to do. That's where a boundary. So number 2 is boundary. You're setting another boundary. And most of the time when you set those boundaries, those people will begin to fall off.
Right.
They'll be what I call a falling away. When you start telling people no, and no is a dissertation. Understand me. No is a dissertation that does not require any additional information. If you choose not to do something because it's not in your best interest, it's simply no. It's simply no. It's not, well, no, I apologize. I can't. No, 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 no. It is no. And that is the end of that conversation. Because those people have a manipulative nature and will continue to talk to you and narrate to get you to do what they want you to do because it's for their benefit and not for yours.
Right.
So for me, the great falling away took place after Darius transitioned. Lots and lots and lots of people, because I don't drink, but however, you also know I have a large supply. I keep a great inventory, and people thought that they were going to be able to come by my home and by my office and the places where we had things stored and be able to just enjoy and help themselves. And I was like, no. And they were like, huh? No. But I already said no, and I'm done. And so the falling away it was layers of people just falling away because they couldn't get from me what they wanted for their benefit. And when you realize that you are the most important person in the scenario, then you will start to change how you think. You'll go back to mindset.
Speaking of mindset and speaking of that, Katana, and along those same lines, just really quickly, as you mentioned it, because you have alcohol supplies, and like I said, I know some other people that have their supplies in various store cases and all along those lines. But I imagine that you're like my musician friends that are oftentimes asked to perform for free and all along those lines. So I'm sure that people that are having weddings and having receptions that are also in your quote unquote friend circle, and we know that not every friend is a true friend, are asking you to give them the friends and family discount, for lack of a better term, if I can use the airplane analogy and everything like that, because there was a time that you could get on the airplanes if you were a member of a family, if you were a family member. I know, and sometimes even friends could get discounts as well and everything like that. I don't know that they have those as much as they used to, but I know American Airlines had that and some other airlines had that in the past. But I'm sure that you've got over these 21 plus years and everything, people that have been like, give me the hookup, because the hookup mentality is very much out there and everything like that. So, and I know sometimes you just got to flat out say no, but how do you deal with that hookup mentality? Because I know that hookup mentality is out there in the bartending business. It's
out there, and I don't get it nearly as much as I used to get it, because I set the precedent and I said, no, we don't discount. As an entrepreneur, most people think the first thing that they need to do is to discount their services or their products in order to gain more traction and to get more clients. And I was taught you start out how you want to end up. So starting out discounting was not an option. The only discounts that we give or utilize on occasion are nonprofits, because we'll give a portion of the proceeds back to them because that's what we're required to do, and military. Because I have a long military history with my family, I'll discount some of those things. Outside of that, that's it. We don't discount. And I've always told people, listen, if you're really my friend, if you really want to support me, you'll support me through my business. And don't expect me to give you anything, because I can't. This is a business. And I think that's where the mindset comes in, because I recognize if I give you that bottle of Macallan that's going to cost me $65, $75, that's profit no longer on my bottom line. I can't give that to you. That doesn't make any sense. Because if I give you that $75 bottle, then that means that's $75 going onto my bottom line that's being taken away. So that means I can't buy that next particular item I need to increase my business and to make it sustainable. So no. And I think my facial expression normally tells people don't even ask. And one of the big things for me is that I've told people for years, my sister, who also passed away in 2020, she was a cosmetologist. And I told her, I said, baby, if I, as your sister, don't pay you, I can't expect other people to pay you. And she just kind of looked at me sideways. And I was like, if I don't pay you and I'm your blood, how can I expect somebody that's not your blood to pay you? And it just was one of those things that I've utilized over the years, and people go, well, dag, I never thought about it that way. And I was like, I have to support her. I had to support, so I had to pay her. And my niece, who's her daughter, I pay her now when she does my hair. I'm like, if I have to go to Durham, here in Durham, and get my hair done, I have to pay her. If I go to Goldsboro and get my niece to do it, I have to pay her. So it's one of those things where it goes literally back to mentality, Mark, mindset. And so people don't approach me anymore with that because they know I give them the face and go, no.
And what about you, Cooch? Because I'm sure that people are always wanting that free tarot reading and those free things. Because I do know that even in that space, people are, particularly since it's seen as a quote unquote soft science, even though I definitely know that there is things behind the tarot and other kind of belief systems and everything like that. But people are probably asking you to give those free readings. You mentioned being in San Francisco. I wouldn't be surprised, and I'm just going to be teasing you right now and everything, if some of the 49ers aren't running to you because they've got a playoff game coming up, trying to get a reading for the upcoming game and all along those lines. So they might be running to you this week and everything.
I just worked a couple of weeks ago in San Jose, and I was like feeling the testosterone of the 49ers. It was a vibration. Strange vibrations. Vibrations have frequencies, so we're all connected. But I was thinking, oh my gosh, Kantana, again, it's like, you could be giving business workshops and like you're so like on point, and that it can work for like not just whatever you're doing, but any profession needs to hear what you have to say to just like hold your ground in your mindset. So I was going, oh, I really needed to be here to hear all of this stuff and answer your question, Mark. Oh my gosh, people really think, oh well, you set a certain time and a certain price for the length of a reading and the cost of a reading, but by the time you get to the end, it's good. I just have one more question. So there's like an infinite awareness that is just part of the job. Is you're going to get. I just have one more question. And then one more question can take another hour. And of course you're on the clock, and you've already agreed to a certain amount of exchange for time and energy. So that's I'm a lifelong. I tell people I'm a lifelong reader and a professional, and I have to pay my bills some way or another, but I swear I'm still trying to figure this out because people, especially if they have really bad, a really sorrowful, painful suffering, their needs are just so, they make you want to cry, and it's really hard to just like turn it off and go, oh no, I don't want to answer this question. So it's an ongoing. Some people are really like, oh, I only want 5 minutes, and they really mean they only want 5 minutes, or they only want one free card. It's only one free card, but it's an ongoing, and never, no matter where you are, what situation, especially if you work events or different kind of public fairs, people are always going to come up and I just have one card, and they're not expecting to pay. So it's an ongoing, that question that you just asked me, I never have a resolution because it's always like one new situation and I have to deal with it. And it's always like, ugh, it's an ongoing learning curve for me. And I was going,
yeah, that makes sense. And I think we're all professional learners, particularly on this show. And even my past guests have been professional learners, even though I sometimes think that we don't give, and I'd love to hear both of your thoughts, but I'll start with you, Quintana, enough credibility to creativity and all along those lines and everything. Because I know that you have to be creative in the bartending business, and you have to be creative in even the way that you treat the creation of drinks and all along those lines. But I sometimes think that we've gotten to this corporate mindset, and we don't oftentimes give enough credence to creativity, because I know that sometimes people will think that after you get to a certain age that you're supposed to be concentrating on getting that corporate job. And even myself, during the pandemic, I became a member of a group out of California called the Funky Eye Puppets and everything like that. And IPC was a creator of that, but he was also involved with George Lucas and some of the Star Wars stuff. And he's on Instagram very actively, but he created like an audio theater troupe, and we were together for about 2 years and everything like that. He's also written a couple of books that were based on the characters that he created and all along those lines. But I know that sometimes he would get us to get back to our childlike wonder, because sometimes we're so stuck in our adulthood. And of course, we've all got to deal with the bills and the reality of adulthood, but sometimes you have to go back into that sense of play. And I know that improv people talk about that sense of play as well and everything like that. But I was just wondering, how do you bring that, for the two of you ladies, how do you bring that sense of play? And do you think that that's something that we repress too much in our school systems?
You want to go first?
Ooh, when you say school systems, I have grandchildren, and that's one of my pet peeves is they want children in first grade to be doing research projects online. I'm like, these are children. You know, where can you nurture them if they're on a computer, or how can you nurture them through an AI? I'm like totally opposed to over stimulating the left brain, the logical, and not giving any attention to the right brain, the creative, intuitive side of the mind. There has to be play of both for the play to actually like be able to have, because energy, my mental energy, it's like waves. So if you're just going to be hit with like one kind of a wave, waves are never just high and they're never just low. There's always a mix. And if our left brain and right brain, our play and our seriousness can like intermingle, we have a better expression of possibilities and potential for play and just being peaceful within, and instead of just trying to be like, I'm on it, you know, there's no time for play. And it needs to start in schools. Children can be nurtured with playfulness in their learning, as well as taking everything seriously. So,
yeah. In bartending, the creativity is key. It's absolutely key. So that creativity, it transforms a lot of times the different cocktails, because you can have the same cocktail created by 2 or 3 different people, and they'll add a different element here, a different element here, and it changes the total the taste of it on your palate. So the creativity is big, and I try to encourage that with my team to always try something different. One of my bartenders, who's actually I don't call him my brother-in-law, it's Darius's brother, but his name is Ramsey. And Ramsey is killer with chemistry. When I say killer. So I'll get him all different types of juices and all different types of mixers, and we'll be out somewhere and somebody will be like, well, I want this, but I want it to taste like that. And I'll be like, just tell Ramsey and let him figure it out. And he knows how to put those flavors together that he'll make a brand new signature cocktail right there on the spot. And that'll be the drink that sells all night long. Like, that creativity is imperative. I have another bartender, Mr. Johnson, Monty Johnson. He's spectacular as well. We just had something at a client's home, and it was an adult Christmas party, but there were 2 young children there. They were maybe 10 or 11. And I said, Monty, make them something you would make for me. And then he changed some things up and made each of them something different. And it was a great hit. So that part of, you had mentioned about AI and taking over, it's not possible, because it's not going to have that type of transition and that type of adaptability to be able to cater to the clients that same way.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, because one of the things that I'm involved in, as you know, I have a variety of jobs, not just a Hayti Haiti Center, but I work for a testing company, Measurement Incorporated, and all along those lines. And that's one of the reasons I don't think that AI will be able to take over testing, at least my opinion, because I don't think that AI knows the nuances. I mean, like, there are some simple questions that AI might be able to answer, like those 2 + 2 = 4 questions, because those are going to be universal answers and everything like that. But there are other things that are going to be asked that might have geographical or racial or a different other kind of nuances that AI won't necessarily understand. So, like, if you ask a kid from a rural area a certain question, he may give a different answer than a city slicker kid, and all along those lines. So that's what I meant when I said nuances that might be more concerned based on what people are, their history and their kind of like personal history, and also who they are as individuals, that AI won't necessarily understand. Now, I'm understanding from some of my friends in the computer field that there may be a point in time that AI gets to that point, but I don't think it's at that point or anywhere near that point right now, to your point about bartending, because I don't think that AI would be able to pick up those kind of differences that you were able to present by giving that example to your bartender, that he was then able to create a non-alcoholic drink for the kids and all along those lines. And the same thing with the difference between, it's not just rural and city, it's also suburban and some of the other ways that we live, that if you ask a question of a suburban kid, they may give a different answer than a city kid. Even if we think about shoes and everything like that, I don't know that the farm kid is going to have the same answer about shoes that a city kid would, just because farms have a more shoes have a more practical purpose in the farmland and all along those lines, because you got to get through some serious muck and some serious stuff in the farmland. And if you ask a question about shoes, and I'm just using shoes as an example, a farm kid is going to give you a more, in my mind, practical answer than maybe a city kid who's looking for the latest trend shoe and everything like that. But that's just an example that I would give if you want to go in a difference between farm and city and something that might have a differentiation.
Mm-hmm. You okay?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
No problem. So you've got into some new businesses, Kantana, and everything along those lines. So share some of those new businesses that you're involved in. Because like you said, the bartending company has been there for a while, but you are a serial entrepreneur, and that hasn't stopped, because when I was talking to you, you mentioned some other businesses that I was like, I didn't know he was in there and everything like that. So talk to me about some of these new businesses that you have launched that aren't necessarily the bartending. We've definitely focused a lot on the bartending on this show, but I know that you've launched into some new business ventures as well.
We did. We actually did the popcorn shop. We opened 3 stores in a year, and they were great. It was gourmet popcorn. It was made by our partner, Robert Miller, who's now moved to Georgia. And it was a great venture. Learned so much. We ultimately shut that down, and God knew, Spirit knew. We shut it down December of 2019. Our modus operandi was you get to sample 3 different flavors. We had like 65, 70 flavors of popcorn. And we were actually allowing you to sample, and we'd give you a little cup. And with COVID hitting in March, we wouldn't have been able to have sustained that because of COVID. And that was just completely freaking me out. So it was one of those things that we had a good 18-month run with that. Emerald Isle, North Carolina, Mebane, North Carolina, and Goldsboro, North Carolina, 3 stores in a year, and it ran flawlessly. It was so wonderful. But we shut that down and needed to, and thank God that we did. We also had Pete's Hats, which was a gentleman's hat company that was started because Darius and his father were hat men. His father was a 2-time Vietnam veteran, a former Marine, and so he traveled all the time. So they were all about men's hats. So we started a hat company, and we ran that from 2004. I actually just last year in 2025, I donated all the remaining hats that we had from the company to Jada's Men's Accessories here in Durham on Chapel Hill Boulevard, excuse me. And James and Wendy Abram are selling those hats. And that was our way of donating to them to enhance their boutique, which is fabulous, by the way. So I'm now out of the hat business. I'm out of the gourmet business, the gourmet popcorn business. However, I am into travel. I am a certified travel agent. And so I'm actually looking to put together a couple of cruises and some other things, but I have a lady that's reached out to me that I need to get her some information about Hawaii. So that will be something I'll be doing long-term because I like to travel. So I might as well do something that I like and be able to help others at the same time.
Right.
And the last thing I'm involved in right now, which you just keep pushing me, Miss Daniels, and I'm just tickled. I'll be starting what's called Kantana Speaks. I'll be doing a YouTube channel, an Instagram page, possibly a TikTok page. I don't know, but definitely a Facebook channel. A YouTube channel within the next week or so. And looking to kind of figure out the things that I'll be talking about. But this is why I was asking you if we would be recording this so that I could put this on the channel immediately.
No, it's no doubt you can definitely put it on the channel. It's interesting you mentioned that because 2 people come to my mind when you say that, and you'll know both of them, and they're having tremendous success. One just had some recent tremendous success, and I'll share their story because it was on their show here on the network and all along those lines. But I am a big fan and hoping to get her on the show very soon of Beverly Mahone, who used to be a coworker in the radio world.
Yeah.
But she's got she's got Dr. Bev and Bev Speaks and everything like that. But she oftentimes will bring up words that we oftentimes aren't thinking about, and all along those lines, and give their definition. Like I think she brought up the whole notion of atrocious, and I think she used a comment that somebody had made that was a kind of a political comment, and all along those lines. But she will put something, she may pull a clip, or she may just talk about her own experiences, but she will give you a definition of words, and that website is doing quite well and all along those lines, because she is still in the teaching profession, but she is also doing quite well in that particular website that she has. And the other thing that I was going to say is that here on this network, we have another teacher, Dr. Tayawana Anthony, and all along those lines, and she goes by the All Around Show. But apparently she's a teacher in the DC area, and she went viral recently because apparently if you go on Facebook and you go on some other things like TikTok and Instagram and other things, she was wearing an outfit that was very much like the outfit from Bath and Body Works. So apparently one of her teachers and one of her students said that she looked like the Bath and Body Works bag and everything like that. So that was viral because she was wearing a very colorful outfit that looked like the Bath and Body Works bag. And her one of her students made that comment, and then she made a TikTok and some other social media platforms. And I understand that even Bath and Body Works has reached out to her because that went viral, and that's got like 1 million hits. So it might be something that you say that can go viral, and all along those lines that you're not expecting, and all in that space. So I just wondered how the both of you do promotions of your own work, because I know you did say that you wanted to know about whether you could put this on your own website. And yes, we have no problem with that, even here on Pod TV, because Kim and Nick, the founders of the network, have told me that I pretty much have carte blanche to allow people to do what they want, and all along those lines. We might even start carrying your speaking engagements, because we had Dr. Barber that had a show on Thursday. So we might even find a way to get you on a regular basis, because you are very conscious about what you say, and all along those lines, and you're very good at what you say and everything, as is Cooch, and all along those lines. So we might even have to bring you on the network on a more regular basis, and on some of our other shows and all along those lines. So I just wanted to share that with both of you, because both of you have that opportunity and everything like that. But how do you get around your social media, and have any of you had those kind of like viral moments? Because like I said, I usually our shows on Monday, but we were recording it on Tuesday, and it might be temporarily on Tuesday until we move her back to Mondays, because part of that's going to depend on her teaching schedule, meaning Dr. Anthony. But when she was sharing her viral moment, I was like, wow, this is amazing, because apparently a student just made a comment and it went viral like within the last couple of weeks.
Wow. Go ahead, Cooch.
Well, while you were talking, I was thinking if you could just open up your time just a little more to do coaching, like either business coaching or relationship coaching. I think, I don't think you'll have any shortage of customers. And I would like to be put on your, send me your URL so I can come and watch your show on YouTube, because I totally think, what you're doing, what you're about, and how you communicate. You're really someone who has a lot to offer, and I want to be a fan. So I think you're great. And then as far as viral, I think the most that comes back to me from other people is when I'm being totally kind of like, instead of taking things too seriously, I kind of like say it is as it is, from like a little sarcasm and a little humor and a little like giving a little bit of the finger, not very much, but when I can just be totally down to earth and real, that's when I get the most response. Mm-hmm. Instead of trying to just be a teacher, or just try to it's all, this is what you need, or whatever readers are supposed to do, like channel the spirits or whatever. But when I'm like getting down and dirty and really being like real with my emotional turbulence or my feelings, not in a way that I'm trying to dish out my dirt or try to make other people responsible for listening to like, what is she complaining about? No, but just saying how things really are, people really respond to that. That's when I get the most response.
Yeah, that makes sense. Coach, what is the most interesting thing you found out in your book? Because you mentioned when I first brought you on the books that you have and all along those lines. So what has surprised you in the books and when you were writing the books? Because everybody thinks that they have a book in them or a film in them and all along those lines. So what are some of the things that surprised you in those two books that you mentioned that people might be surprised to know?
Well, everybody thinks when you write a book, you know, you're going to sit down with a computer and it's going to be done in 24 hours or 24 days. This was a 30-year project. So, and I can't tell you, because when you go back 30 years, there was no AI. We didn't have the computers.
Yeah.
And, you know, I would like send out like 6 proposals to different publishers, and then I'd get back maybe like 3 rejections. So this book, like 30 years ago, had so many rejections, and I never give up. That's one message that I have for people. If you really have a dream or you really think something's important. And I think people just, their receptivity to psychics and the cultural changes that allow psychics to be more in the public eye now, and to be willing to listen to the message, or is there psychological value? Because a lot of people don't want to hear like spirits being channeled, but if you say Jung, then they're like on it right away. So I think, to answer your question, that would surprise people, that books, if they're really your path and your journey, it's not overnight. It is part of your life journey. But the weird thing is, like, the artist for my Zodiac Light was such a kind man, and he would like channel his art. He always said, I could never do any of this art if God wasn't giving me the green light and telling me, and he would like channel what was needed. So a lot of his work came through channeled. And then as soon as he turned in the final release to the publisher and got the last image in, he left the planet. So a lot of what's in here, I was like communicating with someone from the other side who would like tell me, no, yes, do this. You need to ask this from the publisher. I got so much information that just came out of like the clear blue. You know, hear people say, oh, it just showed up in the, you know, in the moment. I mean, I would get messages in the moment that were right, like if I would be talking to either one of you and like getting a message. So a lot of the information that people wouldn't expect, and it's so much more profound than saying, oh, well, the AI did it for me, or, you know, that outlined everything. But no, I had spirits from the other side helping me. So I think, you know, we have to be open to, there's more than meets the eye, if for authors especially. And that same kind of energy when you're doing readings, you have to be totally open. You can't judge people. You can't read a book by the cover, so to speak. You have to be like totally like in the moment and open to be able to receive and connect with people's energy, or to be able to understand, how do I get this book to be published? Now, this is the interesting thing. So this was started with a mutual guru of the artist. That's how we met, was through our mutual guru, who told Peter, the artist, that he should connect with me. But he was leaving the planet. He had already started working with me on this project, my guru, for about a year. So it was well underway and in his mind as he was transitioning. And he said, you're going to do this. And I'm going, okay. This also, and I was working with someone I didn't know. I had to form a relationship with the artist. And so he would like give me things that he wanted me to do. And then I would try to sell the idea. Met with so many rejections. So you have to, you know, when you have a message, or you have something that you really believe in, or you have a dream, you know, if you meet with rejection, it doesn't mean it's the end. It just means it's one of the steps, and you have to keep going to be able to get to where you believe you can go, or you really want to go. And to really know that there's energy that we have no control over, but we also have energy that's being spoon-fed from the cosmos to help us fulfill our destiny, or get to that point that you said, Mark. It's like, you know, we all have a destiny. So you just really have to believe in yourself and have the strength to withstand competition and being pushed out of the way, or being people telling you you're a nutcase, especially for readers, being run out of shops because I was working for the devil, and somebody in the next shop was complaining that the devil worshiper was working in that shop. I mean, you know, there's so many weird things that can happen, but you have to, like, if you within yourself, believe in yourself, you can keep going. If I listened to even my mom and dad saying, you're crazy, you can't do that, you can't do that, I would have never fulfilled my incredible, amazing dream of living this life that is just, you know, I can't believe how blessed I have been. So that's my message.
No, it's interesting you say that and everything because I was watching a documentary yesterday because I'm part of a screening committee for documentaries and all along those lines. And one of them was about a Indian musician. I think he practices a couple of different instruments, the guitar and a couple of other instruments. But one of the things that he said that was very interesting was and he was here in North Carolina, this guru of that particular type of music. But he was saying that if you're lucky and you keep playing the music, that when you first play music, you're hoping that you will like it first of all, that you'll be a fan of your own music. And then after you're a fan, that you're hoping that your fans will be a fan of your music. And then he's saying if you're really lucky, after maybe 20 or 30 years, because they were breaking it down by decades, he's like maybe in the first 10 years, you'll become a fan of your own music. I think in 20 years, your fans may become a fan of your music. And in 30 years, and the increments of time might be different than what he actually said. But he said that eventually he's a guru, your guru, like the music. And if you're really fortunate, after 40 years, God himself will enjoy your music and all along those lines. So this notion of if you kept playing and you kept going and you were persistent in your trade, eventually you would be seen as a positivity to God himself and all along those lines. But it was like steps. It was like from getting yourself to like your music, to your fans to liking the music, to your guru, meaning your teacher, to liking the music, to then eventually God himself loving your music. And I just found that to be a very profound statement from that particular musician and all along those lines. So a lot of times people don't think about how
that's beautiful. That's truly beautiful.
Yeah, I thought that was a real beautiful statement that he made, and that definitely is one that I gave strong recommendations to, and all along those lines. But yeah, people don't think about that. And you said something earlier that I also think that people don't pay enough attention to, and that's this notion of persistence, because I think persistence is a important quality that people don't think about. So, Kantana, how much did you have to think about that even when your husband was living? Because I'm sure there were times that you were wondering, when will this take off? I mean, like I said, Bartending Unlimited has been successful for all of these many years and everything, but I'm sure in those first couple of years, y'all were frustrated and wondering whether it was going to be a success, and y'all had to be persistent. So how much was persistence a vital part of the business plan, for lack of a better term?
It was critical. Persistence is critical, especially when you're starting a business. And like Cooch was saying, you have to be consistent. You have to make sure that no matter what other people are saying, you stay focused on what your purpose is and what your desire and your goal is, because those other people can't actually facilitate your outcome. They can't dictate your outcome. So the persistence part was key. It was not something that we had to take lightly. We both were working full time. We both had full-time jobs. However, the desire to do this was so strong, because he thoroughly enjoyed bartending. He loved the interaction. I called him the front man. I put him out on 123 Front Street. I was the behind the scenes. However, he was the hype man. He knew how to get out there and get people engaged. So with that persistence was key, because he'd get off from his full-time job, and then we'd have to go do networking. We'd have to, go out and be a part of the chamber. We'd have to go out and be a part of these other events that were going on. So the days where you would think that it was maybe a 10-hour day was like a 16-hour day, because we're on for the people that we're working for full time, and then we're now on for ourselves in order to get to that next level, so that people would actually recognize Bartending Unlimited as what it was and what it is. And we are actually, by the way, the oldest professional bartending company in North Carolina.
Oh, wow.
Say
Well, it
that
sounds like
proudly.
y'all might have to have a movie made about you, because I know one of my other guests actually did a movie, and they've done a couple of movies, but I had them on a couple of months ago, and they were making a movie, and they had some of the bartenders on that were involved in the movie, because they were actually involved in flair bartending, which is a whole nother kind of bartending and everything like that. So they were out of California, ironically, but I had the filmmaker as well as one of the flair bartenders that was on, and all along those lines. So that movie, I think, is out now. I think it came out in the fall of this year and has been on cable and other outlets and everything like that. But yeah, that's a whole different type of bartending, because that's bartending that's almost like a show, because some of those bartenders can do juggling acts and do other things while they're creating their dishes. I know it's very popular in Vegas and out west and everything like that. So
I have one of those I have two of those in our arsenal, and one of them actually taught for years. She's been an educator. She actually taught most of my bartenders, but she's a phenomenal flair bartender. I don't pull her out the closet often because she's like, Katana, I don't want to do that right now. However, she's amazing. We love Nikki. She's great. But yeah, flair bartending is a different animal altogether. And it is amazing to watch. It is literally where they have to practice and practice and practice.
Yeah, because it's almost like I've got friends and I've worked at our local street festival, Center Fest. So I've got friends that are magicians as well as puppeteers, and I put flair bartending in that category because some of them can juggle those drinks and all along those lines. You're sitting there going like, how did they juggle that cup and still manage to make the drink without
Exactly.
everything like that? But they have a tremendous skill set that people don't give a credibility to and all along those lines. So I think people don't understand that and all in that space. Going to wind down shortly and all along those lines. We still got a few more minutes and I am going to get to that question that I ask everybody at the end. But Katana, just along that same line and everything, how important, because Coot kind of mentioned it, has the notion of connecting to the ancestors been even in your own life? Because I know that you, like you said, you're still in touch with Darius, your late husband, but I'm imagining that you're even in touch with other ancestors as well. I oftentimes talk about the Heritage Center that I work at that's celebrating its 50th year. And I think that some of the people that stepped through those doors that have since gone on to the ancestor ground, I still feel their energy, even if they're not around, like Baba Chuck Davis and Mr. Scarborough and a number of others that were around, but I still feel their energy and even energy of people that I didn't know, because I sometimes feel the energy of the people that were in the church, because that is a 150-year-old church and everything like that. So I just wondering your thoughts around the importance of having that spiritual connection and connection to the ancestors.
It is paramount, in my humble opinion. And I say that from a couple of different places. One, I am a PK. I'm a pastor's kid. Both of my father and my mother were apostles. So I grew up in the church. However, you morph and you learn as you continue to grow. And it's not just the church and the ritualistic ceremonies. It is your spiritual connection to your ancestors, to your forefathers, to your angels, to your guides. And my father has transitioned. My mother's still here, thank God. My dad was powerful, and I still feel his energy regularly. He was a very learned man. He was learning Hebrew. He penned 4 books, and his teachings will blow your mind. So I still feel his presence on a regular basis. And I hear his voice, because the people that you look to or that were your foundation, you still hear their voices as you matriculate, even when they're gone. Just in the way that you think, you'll hear their voice, you'll feel that tone. Everything is energy. Everything is energy. And that's where people don't get it. Everything is energy. Your thought processes, the way you move, the way you think, all of it's energy. Energy never dies. It just transfers. It moves. And that's where people don't get it most of the time. However, I'm acutely in contact with my ancestors, my angels and my guides. And that's not negating God. That's not negating the Holy Spirit. That's just recognizing that source is huge, and it's not just one little thing. And we will put source in a little box and think that everything can come out of that one box, and it's not. There has to be a diversity, and you have to be, in my humble opinion, mindful of your ancestors, because I'm from a line of entrepreneurs. I wouldn't have been here if it wasn't for my grandfather, my paternal grandfather, who was a master mechanic, my maternal grandfather, who was a master barber, and it goes on and on and on and on. But those things wouldn't have happened to me the way that they did had their energies not been present in me. Does that make any sense?
No, that makes a lot of sense and everything because I know that one of my good friends who's a funk musician and also I produce his show every Saturday, Funk from the Front Seat. It was on this network, but now it's on his own personal network. But I know that that's something that me and Zach Robinson often talk about because he oftentimes talks about the notion of empath and all along those lines and light warriors, which he definitely feels that we are among and everything like that. And sometimes I feel that too often, to your point, and I'm not knocking those that are Pentecostal or apostolic in nature and everything, but sometimes I think that some religions get too caught up in their own myopic focus and all along those lines. And I'm one of those people that has the belief that there's a lot of answers out there, and some of them might be in the Eastern religions just as well as the Western religions and everything like that. So I'm definitely one that doesn't feel. I think that a lot of people, and this is just my own belief system. Not in a rush to find out. Like I said, we'll all find out eventually and everything. But I think that there'll be a lot of surprises in Heaven's Gate, and people might find some folks that they don't expect to be in Heaven's Gate up there based on some of their belief systems and everything. But I think that God is a forgiving God and looks at the totality of your life and everything like that. So I think that there might be some folks, not saying you're going to find a bunch of criminal minds or the Hitler types out there, but I do think that there might be some people that are of different religious beliefs that your religious thoughts would have you believe that they would not be there because there's a lot of my way or the highway kind of attitudes in the spiritual world and everything like that. So I think that that may be a misnomer. And like I said, I won't know until I get to the end zone and everything like that, to use the football analogy and everything like that, but not in a rush to get to that part of the game, even though I'm 64. So definitely in the other half of the life. But hey, I sometimes joke that I'm going for 200. If I'm going for 200, then it's actually only the beginning of the second quarter and not going for the fourth quarter. But realistically, it'll probably be 100 and something if I'm going by family history and all along those lines, because mom is still very much vibrant life, and she's 80, will be 84 in the May, and Dad is a few years older, so he's 85 and about to be 86, and they're both very vibrant. I think you know my dad, Jeb Lee, and everything along those lines. So definitely, he's very vibrant, even though he's had some health issues. So I wouldn't be surprised if they don't cross the 100 mark and everything like that. And to your point that you said earlier, Cantana, I feel the energy, and I consider her to be one of my spirit guides. My grandmother passed away back in 82, but I still feel connected to her because she was very much in that creative space. She had the pleasure of knowing Zora Neale Hurston and some of the other greats of the Harlem Renaissance, particularly when Zora was teaching at Central, and she knew some other people like that and everything. She even knew W.E.B. Du Bois because Dad has a picture of W.E.B. Du Bois, and even the letters between, I think it was W.E.B. Du Bois and one of the other great authors and everything like that. There was letters back and forth, and they mentioned this notion of stopping at Grandma Molly's house because she was going to have the best schnapps around because she was known for her drinks as well as other things like that. So in those dialogues and those letters between each other and everything, they mentioned that they had to stop at the Lee house and everything just to get a copy of that, the little taste of that schnapps, and maybe also enjoy the company of both Mr. and Miss Lee that and everything like that. So, but like I said, what, 82, we're in 2026, so that's some 44 years ago that she passed away and everything like that. Because I think she passed away back in, I think it was early part of the year, like January or something like that. So we're actually coming up on her 44th year of not being here on this planet. But even though she's not been here for 44 years, I still feel her presence in my life and everything like that. So I think that that's very much that case. And I even sometimes, because we were both in the creative space, she being a librarian, me doing the different things that I do in media and event planning and all along those lines, I even feel her presence in some of the work that I do as well, even though she's not been here for a number of years. And like I said, Bob, I feel the same way about him, even though he's been gone now for, it's hard to believe, 8 years and everything like that, or almost 8 years. But I still feel his presence and a number of others that I feel that are still out there and everything like that. So I think that energy, to both of your point, is out there, and people don't give enough credence to that energy.
I think it's our memories and our feelings mixed together create a frequency, and that frequency is like a magnet that draws the other side to us. So it's we really have an ability to communicate with the unseen, even if we're not conscious of it, because we're stimulating a connection through our feelings that call to the other side. That's my belief.
No, I agree with you on that, and I think that sometimes we sometimes ignore what's going on as well because, like I said, the center that I work in, I know Cantana has done some events there, the Hayti Hair Center. I don't know anybody that has not been a member of that staff, and even people when they visit the building because of its history. It was built as a brush arbor originally, and then it was built as a church that was eventually moved to another location. It was very much a part of Black Wall Street and all along those lines. And a number of famous people, both living and past, have stepped into those doors. I mean, Nina Freelon has done concerts, and she's still very much with us, as has Branford Marcellus, who's recorded some albums there and everything. But everybody that has stepped in that place, including some of those names that I mentioned, have said that they felt that energy in the building. The building has an energy as well. So a lot of times people can feel the energy. And I think everybody that has worked there has said that they have heard things that didn't make sense and everything along those lines. So they might hear steps, or they might hear dancing, or they might hear other things just because of its history. So I think you got to be attuned to it. But I don't know a worker in that place that has not felt either an energetic connection, or in some cases actually heard things that were not didn't make sense to be in the building because the building might be empty. So you might hear steps, or you might hear the sound of music, or the sound of dance, and things along those lines. So everybody I know has heard those mysterious kind of vibrations, for lack of a better term. And I think that any ancestral or historical building has those, whether you're in New York, California, or a number of other places. I think most people that I know that have worked in those places or those kind of environments have felt that vibration. I don't know if the two of you have felt that in places that you've worked, but I've definitely felt it even in places at Central.
You made a statement earlier in regards to people having small minds and just kind of boxing things off. And the one thread that my father educated me on while he was here was that he studied everything. He studied all religions, the Torah, the Quran, the Bible, like you name it, he studied it. And he said, all of them have the same type of thread going through them.
No, and I've said that here on this show and everything, because there was ironically, my dad, who is an artist here in the area, brought me and my brother one time to watch a TV show, and this was done maybe it was before the pandemic, so maybe 10 years ago, but it was with one of the famous TV anchors. It was either Peter Jennings or Ted Koppel, but it was them looking at the world religions. And to your point, Cantana, that's what he found, is he was looking at there, and it was whether it was respect the elderly, whether it was respect Mother Nature, or whether it was a number of other things, respect your neighbor, and all along those lines. But there was a common theme that went through all of those religions, which is probably what your dad noticed. And I noticed that that's what Peter Jennings noticed. Because like I said, at that time, I was, and it had to be longer than 10 years ago, because it was when me and my brother were living together and everything. That's when we were on Cecil Street and everything like that. But I remember he's on Nelson, so he told us to come over to his house to watch this particular TV series. So I'm thinking it had to be like some 15 or 20 years ago. But I'm just thinking that notion of what they were going through in terms of analyzing the religions is what you're talking about, that your dad noticed, is this commonality. And this was part of a ABC special, because it was Peter Jennings or Ted Koppel. It had to be that network. They were all been on that particular network. So I think it was an ABC special. What you were saying that your dad noticed was that commonality. Maybe he owes some other commonalities, but I remember those three elements: respect the elderly, respect Mother Nature, and respect your neighbor.
Exactly. And that love, yes, as Coach was saying, love, because all of those things are their themes throughout every religion. I don't care what it is, those themes are there. So there's a consistency that actually binds all of us together, whether we recognize it or not, no matter what religion, whether you're Jewish, whether you're Greek, whether you're, whatever the case may be, that same theme is there. And if we just would apply that, and not be so divided by all of the little nuances, because this one does this and this one does that. Just stick with the main things. You can't go wrong with that, because they're universal, in my humble opinion.
No, I agree. They're definitely universal and everything like that. Like I said, this has been a great conversation. I know I want to get ready to wrap up and everything along those lines. So I want to give you both an opportunity to share your thoughts around positivity and your message of positivity, and also how people can get in touch with you if they want to use your service, in the case of you, Cantana, with the bartending, or even you with your tarot reading and everything along those lines. And if there's anything that we haven't touched on that you would have liked to touch on, this is your opportunity to do that as well. So I'll start with you, Cantana, and then I'll end with Cooch and everything like that. But Cantana, if you've got a message of positivity that you want to share, and also tell people how they can be in touch with you if they've learned a lot from your teachings, because you've definitely given some very good pointers on this particular show, and all along those lines, and anything that you didn't touch on, and your message of positivity.
My message of positivity is literally believe in yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Believe in yourself, forgive yourself, trust yourself, follow your intuition, know your own heart, know your own mind, set out whatever that purpose is for yourself and stick with it. It's not complicated. We as people will overcomplicate things when it's really very simple. Believe in yourself, stay focused on what your goals are, and forgive yourself. Stop having, going back to mindset, stop having that erroneous mindset that keeps you blocked from moving forward.
No, how can you be reached and everything along those lines? Before I get to Coach, you mentioned something that I think people don't think enough about and everything, which is that notion of forgiving yourself and everything like that. Because I think a lot of times we are too stressed on not forgiving ourselves, whether it's for a real misdeed or a perceived misdeed and everything. Because some of the things that we are needing to forgive ourselves for, the people have even moved on from, and you might not even have to do as much forgiving as you think you do and everything like that. But I just wanted your thoughts around that notion of forgiving yourself, because I think that's one of the hardest lessons that people have to learn in life.
Most of the time, it's a perceived ought.
Mm-hmm.
Normally, it's not something you've done. It's something you've thought.
Right.
It's not something you've actually perpetrated. It's something you've thought. So I keep going back to mindset. That's just the thing today for me is mindset, because it changes everything about your day. When I wake up, the first thing on my wall, I have these two big signs. One on my wall says choose happy and make today amazing. So that's the first thing I see when I wake up every morning. And gratitude. Gratitude changes everything. Mm-hmm. Be grateful for everything you have, whether it's good, bad, or ugly. Be grateful. It makes a big difference. It just does.
Yeah, no doubt about that. How can you be reached before I get to Cooch and everything like that? Because folks have been definitely hearing your amazing thoughts and might want to find a way to reach you as well.
Okay. In order to reach me, you can reach me at area code 919-697-0179, 919-697-0179. You can email me at info@bartendingunlimited.com, info@bartendingunlimited.com, or you can visit my website at www.bartendingunlimited.com.
I appreciate that and everything, and hopefully people will be doing that, reaching out to you and getting your amazing service of you and your workers and all along those lines. Cooch, tell us how that you can be reached and anything that you like to share that you haven't got to on this particular afternoon, and your message of positivity as well.
Oh, that's how do I take something that's like this big and like bring it down to this? But just to say thank you all for joining all of us, and from my heart to your heart, thank you so much for listening to me. And what my message is to just really look at your belief system, because your belief system is creating who you are and how you live your life. So if you believe that you can be a positive person, you're going to find excuses to be a positive person. So it's really important to pay attention to how are you perceiving things? What is your attitude? The more open you can be, the more open your world is going to be. And the more positive that you believe things are going to happen, like you're going to have a good day, the chances are you're going to see things, even if they're challenging, in a better light. So try to really pay attention to just like owning what you're creating, because you are creating through your thoughts how you're living your life. And that isn't always simple, but at the same time, the more you love within, the more you can give love without. And I'm a big fan of love. My website, I think it's up here on the screen. It's mysticsecrets.net. And I've got a lot of information on there in my blog. And I also have information if you want readings, how to get a hold of me. But direct message on Facebook to Cooch Daniels, or I have a page called Mystic Secrets Cooch Daniels. So that's how I can be reached online. And my phone number, I never give it out, but Cantana's so like brave. I'm like, I need to be brave too. Okay, well, that would be 707-688-5785. And, or you could just message me on that line, probably better than calling, because I never usually answer my phone. I'm one of those hermits. But I do call people back, and, just know that your frequency is being sent out through your third eye, and you are what you believe. So believe you are loved.
No, that
That's my
makes a
message.
lot of sense and everything. I appreciate it. Before I get ready to get out of here, a quick question for the two of you and everything. But what is the biggest mystic secret in your mind, Cooch, and everything? Because your website is called Mystic Secrets, and there's so many mystic secrets. Some people are trying to figure out if God is a woman or if God is a spirit only, or all along those lines. Just like people are trying to figure out how the pyramids got built, and all along those lines. So there are many secrets that are out there. So in your mind, what do you think is the strongest mystic secret out there, and the one that may actually have a true answer?
The mystic secret is inside of you. The answer of what is the biggest mystic secret, it is within you. So listen within, trying to meditate, be inner with your questions, and the universe provides. You ask for help, you ask for answers, the universe will give you answers. So you really, if you're looking for an answer, like what is the biggest secret, that secret is within you, and you need to go in to really get those answers.
That makes a lot of sense. I'm going to go out with a video about education. And it's not just a traditional message about education, because this gentleman from Oklahoma created an award ceremony that celebrated teachers, but also celebrated their support staff, because a lot of times people forget the importance of the guidance counselor. I would even say the importance of the cafeteria worker, which my grandmother on my mom's side was, and everything like that. And even the importance of the janitor and the secretary, because a lot of times, like in a lot of corporations, they're the ones that know the true secrets of the companies and the true secrets of the business, and you can learn a lot from them. I know a lot of entrepreneurs sometimes don't pay enough close attention to the people that probably have the real keys to their success, and all along those lines, because definitely the janitors and the secretaries might have more keys to success than you are giving them credit for, and all along those lines. So I was just wondering if you can give, before I play this video and we get on out of here, and I've got Plan to Prosper coming up at 6 o'clock, your thoughts around maybe a teacher that was a important person in your own life, or a guidance counselor or somebody else, and how they impacted you. And then I'll play this video that's an award ceremony that's been going on for a number of years out of Oklahoma, celebrating the teachers and support staff of that particular state.
Is this for Cantana?
Both of you.
Oh, for both of us. You're first. For a minute. So you're first, Cantana.
I think I understand your question.
The important, like the teacher that really had a importance to you and everything like that, and so how it impacted your own life. And it doesn't have to be a teacher; it can also be a support staff person.
Okay. Couple of teachers. Mary Delaney, who's transitioned, and Sandra Bunn. Mary Delaney was an English instructor for me. Sandra Bunn was a business instructor. We did shorthand and all those things. Just watching them being high caliber women. Oh my God. And Sandra Boyette, who was my science instructor in high school. Oh my God. She was amazing. She taught me, my brother, and my two of my sisters as well. But these women were very organized, they were very structured, and they were adamant about ensuring that you stay focused on what your purpose is and you move forward in that arena. They were very supportive and very instructive. So it was one of those things where it was that kind of that hard love, but it was necessary because it was able to lay a foundation that I've been able to use as I've matriculated through life. The other thing is the administrative assistants of different CEOs and CFOs that I've had contact with have been transformative for my business. So I don't normally try to get to the CEOs and the CFOs. I try to get to the admins because they actually run the business. Not being funny and not taking away from the bigwigs, but just knowing the reality that the people that actually have the power are not the ones standing up front.
Yeah, that's very much true. The ones with the power are usually the admins, and all along those lines. We are on Thoughts Cooch, and then I'll play this video and get us on out of here. But what teachers or somebody that really impacted you, or maybe somebody that was a support staff, whether it's an ad man or a cafeteria worker or even a police officer?
Oh, I think we can learn from everyone, and everyone has some kind of a message for us. When I was younger and I was trying to figure out who am I going to be a teacher, because I had studied to be a teacher myself, and it was like I didn't want to be a teacher, but I joined a group of women who were practicing becoming psychics, and the teacher who helped me the most was Alta Kelly, dear soul. She really pushed me to use my third eye and to trust my intuition, and just to give somebody that push. And Judy Blake, but those two women empowered me to be a psychic, and I would give them a lot of credit. But the person who influences my journey as a lifelong being trying to become more evolved or more awake is a saint in India named they call her Amma the Hugging Saint, or Sri Amma Ritananda Mayima. And you can find many videos of her, and her message is love, compassion, and kindness. And, if you follow those ideals, or even just try to step in that direction a little bit, the world is a softer, more gentle place.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I appreciate both of you being on, getting ready to go out with this particular video and all along those lines. And then I've got to get to the other show as well. But I've thoroughly enjoyed our conversation and look forward to having both of you back on at a future time. And also appreciated Sean, who was on earlier as well. I know he had some things that he had to get around, but hopefully he'll come back on other shows as well. But definitely enjoyed him being on to share some of his insights also. But I've thoroughly enjoyed our time together, and I'm going to go out with this video, and we'll see you on the flip side, as they used to say back in the old DJ days, and all along those lines. So thoroughly enjoyed it, and we're getting ready to get on out of here.
Thank you so much.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you.
No problem.
Nice meeting you both.
I won't fold, I won't drop until we on top. Only going non-stop, non-stop. I won't fold, I won't drop until we on top. Only going non-stop.
I want to thank everyone for coming to the 2020 TAF Awards. This was a show like no other, people. This is the Grammys for dignitaries, educators, and support staff around the state of Oklahoma and worldwide. We cannot do this without the support of the people. So we thank you. I thank you for being such a dedicated supporter to this movement for the Teachers Appreciation Foundation. I thank you.
I won't fold.